So let's begin. Yet another morning in 2020. It has been a crazy year. I feel like I'd lived through some crazy times. I think 1968 was a pretty crazy time if you were alive then, when we had two assassinations, Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, and all kinds of crazy stuff was going on. The country was on the verge of imploding. It felt like, at any rate. So this is another one of those interesting times. And to live in interesting times without total stress takes practice. And practice can be kind of boring sometimes. It takes a kind of shift in the system to really just say practice is so beautiful and unique. And so this morning, I dedicate this to a dance teacher I had years ago, and I don't remember her name because I was not a personal connection. I was at the Duke University, and they were having the American Dance Festival. And so we had these huge classes, and I remember taking from this woman who was one of the dancers in one of the residence companies. And I will always remember this moment. And she said, we do pliés. Pliés are the little knee bends that dancers do in the different positions, if you ever had dance when you were younger. And she said, we do these at the beginning every time. They're warm-ups. They're a way that we warm up in ballet and in dance. And she said, but we can get very blasé about them. Oh my God, dancing, you know. And she said, how do we make this simple movement new and fresh? And she had us do all kinds of things. I remember one is that we'd go down in the knee bend, either wide second position or first position, any of the positions. But when we'd come up, we'd have to yell out our favorite flavor of ice cream. And so this whole room that had maybe 60, 70 people in it dancing. I mean, it was maybe even 100. It was a big space. And everybody was just screaming out, chocolate, strawberry, raspberry, you know, all of vanilla, everything was just screaming out. And it made us all giggle. And it brought this sense of wonder to something we had done thousands, hundreds of thousands of times. And if we continue to dance, do over and over. So you guys have all been practicing yoga for a long time. And so today I just invite you for your intention to bring a sense of freshness and newness. And you're welcome to call out something that you think of as a way to bring freshness and newness. I will keep tossing out crazy things periodically. And giggling is part of the process, so giggling is good. And just bringing a sense of wonder. It's just, especially this time, it's dark, it's darker longer. It's hard to bring that sense of freshness, of wonder. So we'll give it a go. Sit well if you haven't already adjusted your seat so that your spine can be long. A sense of upliftment. That's what a good alignment gives us, is a sense of upliftment. And who doesn't want that, really? Who really wants to be low and slow and cranky? And well, sometimes I do enjoy my crankiness, I grant you that, but who really wants it? I really do want the sense of upliftment, not crazy Stepford wife, it's all good, but a sense of just calm joy. And as you breathe in a sense of all rightness, a sense of okayness. And exhale a sense of well-being for yourself, for all beings. So as you breathe, that thing you do, what is it they say in the book? I can't remember. 50,000 times a day you breathe or something like that. It's a lot. And thankfully, we do not have to think about our breathing all the time. We don't have to remember to breathe as we have to remember to engage our core. But then we can affect the breath by lengthening the exhale, deepening the inhale. come to the Ujjayi sounded breath, where you constrict the back of the throat slightly and hear your breath coming in and out through your nose. And with each breath, pick up a sense of wonder at just this beauty of breath. If you've ever been in a situation where you could not catch your breath, or you may have had a respiratory infection or something where, or asthma, something where breathing was hard, then you know what the beauty of breathing is. Just the ability to take a full deep inhale, full deep exhale. On your next inhale, draw your hands together in front of your heart center. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. And inhale to Om. Release your hands. Release, flutter your eyes open, find your ball, and make good work of it. You can either press your hands together or use the earth to press back up against you. And then roll it around the circumference of the palm, then from wrist to fingertip, scribble and move. And just for those few seconds, release and notice. Not only does my hand have some pitted edema here from pressing it, but just the difference, change sides. Clearly need more water. And then scribble, rinse, work the hand. And pause. Work this little armpit triangle here, the armpit chest. Press, pressing in. A little too hard there. Mariana, take it easy. But you do want to feel it. Dig in there, this little pec, this is the pec, yeah, that pulls in. And then under, just along the bottom edge of the collarbone towards the sternum. And release. And I love this feeling. This is a sense of awe and wonder. Just this whole side now feels awake, open, ready to move. And change sides. And find your wake up call on that side. There it is. Really tight. Woo. Dig it in. And release. Lose the ball for a minute. We'll get it when we stand up. Come to hands and knees. And you know the drill. So this is like plies in yoga, the cat-cow, at least in my practice. And where can you infuse a sense of newness, a sense of wonder, a sense of crawling into every little space? The breath floods in, the movement moves with, the movement is coordinated with the breath. Pull it in, stretch it out. Typically, we exhale when we contract and inhale when we expand. So where can you find a place in this very familiar movement that you maybe just had not paid attention to very much? And then make circles with the hips, big or little, one way for a few times, and then the other way for a few times. And tuck your toes. Now, walk it back. It's easy to find the newness in the toe torture position. Interlace the hands behind the back, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, pull the ribs in, pull the belly button in, and rise up. Release. And untuck the toes. And if it's okay on the knees, sit back just to stretch the top of the feet. So in some cases, just sitting back stretches the top of the feet just fine. In other cases, I like to stretch back to really lift the knees and stretch. So just get a little bit of a stretch across the top of the feet. Come back to table, widen your table, ready for dog. Tuck your toes. Connect with the whole circumference of both hands. I mean, you can do a one-handed dog if you want, but it's more fun. Micro bend the elbows out to the side a little bit. Pull the elbows back and down, and then push against the floor as you unfurl. Keep the knees bent and walk your dog. And as you walk the dog, just keep walking your feet apart from each other a little bit until they're outer hip distance apart, pretty wide. Lift the heels, hug the heels energetically together without physically bringing them together. Knees are really bent a lot. So the knees then widen out over the ankles. So pull the knees out so they line up with the ankles. Then the inner thighs move way back and move the inner thighs apart. You have to engage the belly to do that. Tailbone lengthens. And then start to move the heels towards the floor. Maybe they straighten but not lock. And keeping the upper body where it is, rotate the heels to the right. So you're on the baby toe side of the right foot and the big toe side of the left foot. And then inhale, lift up. It's called crazy wonky dog. And then back down to the other side. And notice the shoulders want to adjust and drop and pull. See if you can keep the shoulders steady. Keep hugging the shoulder blades on the back firmly. Oh. Keep lifting one side and then the other with the breath. Pull the shoulder blades down the back towards the waistline. The next time you come up through center, pause, soften your knees as you walk your hands back to your feet. Forward bend at the back of your mat. Feet are wide, a little wider than normal perhaps. And then with the hands either on blocks or the forearms on the thighs, hands can be on the floor as well. Do little micro bends, micro straightens, micro bends, micro straightens. Pull the belly button up and in. Micro bend, micro straighten. With the breath. Then the next time you bend slightly, hands on the hips, shrug the shoulders towards the ears, lift the head of the arm bones towards the sky, then use the legs, press down, engage the core as you hinge from the hips and rise up. All right, we're up. Find the ball. And press. Oh. Now, I find that especially working the spiky ball, the sense of awe and wonder pretty easy to find on my feet because the feet always kind of go, really? Seriously? You just keep finding those little spaces. Pressing, inner arch. Find where is your tenderest spot. For me, the inner arch tends to be the tenderest up near the ball, big toe ball. But everything else is no slouch after that. You start to roll to the back of the foot if you haven't already. So you're pressing first, do hard presses. And then once you've pressed out all of the little points, you even sometimes feel it up under the ribs or in the armpit, it slides up, you're hitting a little nerve connection there. And then rinse from heel to toe and scribble a bit and release. And breathe into that sense of newness, of openness, sweetness. That foot just is more connected to the earth. Change sides. Moan, groan, ouchie. Should feel something. If you're just saying, oh, I don't really feel anything, then put a little more weight on the foot. Press into it a little harder. Oh, gosh, that inner arch. So tender. But you'll notice that the more you do this, if when you find somebody who's never done this, and they come to class, their eyes are just popping out of their head. They're just like, it's like, I didn't come to yoga to be tortured. They're intense. And then you do this a few times and the feet start to crave it. They just want that connection and the stimulation. At least I do. I miss it when I skip it. I just think if everybody did this to their feet before they got in the car, maybe there'd be a tiny bit less road rage. What do you think? It's worth an experiment, right? Yeah, right. I know. And release. All right. Come to the top of your mat. Have your blocks near you. Pick up your belt, strap, whatever you've got. And do a little morning back bend. And these back bends can be done any time of the day, of course, but it's morning. And so now they are morning back bend. So set your foundation, soles of the feet, press down, toes lift, arches lift. Hug the heels towards each other as you press the shins forward to micro bend the knees, keeping all of that. Inner thighs move back and widen them. You have to, if you widen, muscularly try to widen your inner thighs apart as they move back, then you start to feel some core work. And then into that space, the tailbone lengthens to fire up the core even more as the toes spread along the floor and you lengthen the legs naturally without locking. So pull the neoprene dive suit all the way up from the soles of the feet to the core of the pelvis. Tailbone down, low belly up and in. As you lift the arms, and again, the arms can come slightly forward, bend the elbows so you're in right angles. The elbows are right angles. And then notice, as soon as I do that, my bottom ribs lift up. So the bottom ribs pull down, but the chest lifts up. So I can pull the bottom ribs down, but it will collapse my upper chest. So as the bottom ribs stay down, then the head of the arm bones move back and onto the shoulder blades. Now pull the elbows back to the degree you can without losing all of that beautiful connection. Breathe. And then press down more from the core of the pelvis through into the feet, and then lift from the core of the pelvis up to the ceiling and curl back. So while the ribs do open here a bit, you're still trying to knit them down towards the pelvis. And breathe. Shake off. Take the strap a little bit narrower unless your shoulders are having some issues here. Again, steady the legs, heels hug, shins press forward energetically, inner thighs move wide and back. So pull them apart and widen them. Then the tailbone lengthens into that space, bottom ribs knit down. With your right arm, pull the left arm and start to tilt to the right. The left arm has to pull up, so the left arm's giving as good as it gets. And breathe. So shoulders are stacked on top of each other. If you give up the upper body alignment to go farther, then you've lost that point where you can feel something new. And then you use the left hand to pull you up, and then the left arm pulls you down, and the right arm pulls back against that as you tilt to the left. Oh, pull the bottom ribs in, and the heart lifts. Just enough to feel a little sweet stretch on the right side. Press the right foot into the floor more from the core of the pelvis, and then from the core of the pelvis, push down to rise up. Oh. Again, I think if everybody kind of opened their shoulders in the morning, maybe there'd be slight less road rage. I'm ever hopeful. All right, hold behind, about hip width apart, so your hands can probably be seen from the side, but not too wide. Connect through the feet, hug the heels towards each other. Inner thighs move in, back, and apart. As you tilt forward, you can come halfway or pull all the way, pull your belly button up and in as you take, the arms overhead. And breathe here. Open the shoulders. And then come up halfway if you came down farther than halfway. Steady the legs, strong core, and use that from the core of the pelvis down through the feet to hinge from the hips on your inhale and rise up. All right. Lose the belt for a bit. Let's move. Stand steady. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, prepare, stretch your right leg back, straight leg lunge. Use your blocks in place, light on the fingertips. They can be as high as they need to. Very little weight on the blocks. The blocks are on either side of your front foot, not forward of, not behind, right into the Goldilocks place. And then engaging the legs, lengthening the tailbone, pulling the belly button up and in, begin to straighten and bend and straighten. Very light on the fingertips, and even practicing balance for some of us. The hands rest on the sacrum, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones to the sky, and the torso stays in the same relationship to the floor. You're not rounding and arching the back. It's just essentially roughly parallel to the floor as you bend, straighten. Ooh, forgot to bend the back leg. There we go. Oh, who thought this was a good idea? Find some newness. And maybe it's the same old place that you struggle with every time you do this, but think of it as a new awareness of the same sensation, perhaps. And then move the blocks and step back into downward facing dog. Oh. Stretch it out. Shift forward, plank pose. Claw the floor with the hands, with the finger pads under the fingernails. Lift the belly button, soften the heart. Hug your shoulder blades deeply, fully on the back. And lower, pull the knees in like you're about to lower them. Nothing else changes. As the heels lift a little higher and the knees start to move towards the floor, squeeze an imaginary block between the knees and just hover off the floor. So the knees are kissing the floor. They look like they're touching. In fact, touch them, but no weight is on the knees. Oh, but the hips stay high. So you're not bringing the hips down. That was no fun. And release.
all the way to the floor. Windshield wiper your legs. Rest your forehead. Stretch your legs out long behind you. Click all 10 toenails on the floor. Lengthen the tailbone. Pull the belly button up and in. And come onto your forearms. So imagine that someone has your ankles and they're pulling the ankles way back and you keep spreading the toes. The baby toenail will want to curl off the floor and you're stretching it towards the floor. Still use core here, even though we're not supporting ourselves against gravity, but pull the belly button up and in, tailbone lengthens. Keeping that, press the forearms into the earth, hug an imaginary block between the elbows, and then pull the forearms back towards the hips isometrically as you pull the heart through. Not by lifting the chin, lengthen the back of the neck, but moving the heart through. Lead with the heart. Good. Release. Tuck your toes and bump your knees up so the hips are about as high as the shoulders. And hug an imaginary block both between the elbows and the knees and just lift the knees, hover over the floor. The fabric or the skin touches the mat, but there's no weight on it. Soften the heart. Now do little baby cat cows here, just with the upper back. The hips stay level, round to look back at your knees, and inhale, curl forward, lift forward. Exhale, bow. Oh, I know. Feeling this yet, Shelly? And round. So you're just rounding now the upper back, not engaging the hips here. Keep the hips stable. Oh, release. Downward facing dog. We have to do the other side, bow and scrape. All right. All right, step your right foot forward, straight leg lunge. Use your blocks on the side as you need to. Light on the fingertips. Scissor the legs and pull the belly up and in. Breathe, soften between the shoulder blades. Now bend, straighten, bend. Either with the fingertips, very light, almost no weight, just to keep you from tipping over. One finger maybe, or rest your hands on your sacrum, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones to the sky, and keep that relationship. The torso does not come up. And in fact, see if you can place your right ribs on the inner right thigh, and they never move. They never pull away. They just stay right where they are. Whew. All right. And step back, downward facing dog. From dog, walk your right foot in just about 6 inches so the sole of the foot can be on the floor and the left heel is high. So you're walking the right toes a little bit closer to your hands. So you stretch, you feel the quadricep and the back of the hamstring stretching a little more there. Uh-huh. Yes, sir, ma'am. Oh, change sides. All you have to do is step it forward a smidge or two, maybe a half a foot length or a foot length. Just enough. So most of the time you're not feeling anything on, in this case, the right leg, the right heel is high. Just pick up the right heel as high as you can. Then to work the heel of the left foot towards the floor. It may not go to the floor. Don't want to hear any ripping, tearing, shredding. Ooh, place it back. Walk your feet out about a little wider stance than normal, dog, and walk your hands back to your toes. And do a side stretch here. So you're about not quite your mat width apart, but close to it. Feet are parallel. Soften the knees as much as you need to. Hug the heels towards each other, and then lengthen the tailbone down towards the floor. Pull the belly up and in. The left hand takes hold of the right outside of the right lower leg and walk the right fingertips out straight. So you're not turning the hips. The left side is still pulling back, your left hip up top of your thighs pulling back. It's your torso that's shifting slightly over towards the right leg. Don't let the outer left hip is moving back towards the wall behind you. Oh, inhale back to center. Change sides. So stabilize the hips. This time your right hip wants to follow and roll in. You're pulling it back. Keep it back. That's through core strength. Then take hold with the right hand outside of the left leg. Walk. And you can use, now I tell you, the block, if touching the floor, is not an option. That works nicely as well. Actually, I like that very much. Even though you can touch the floor. Oh. Well, let's do that again on the other side. So we'll repeat it, but come up first. Inhale, take a breath, slowly inhale your way up and stand. All right, so second side, have the blocks high, even if you can touch the floor easily. And if you can't, this is even better. So your knees can be bent, but be aware, notice if you're rolling more, what happens is because women in particular, but I see this in men, just not as much, we tend to get weaker in the inner thighs. That's a place where it's easy to get weak. And so what happens with the weaker inner thighs, and then we roll over more towards the inner edge, and you see how my knees are no longer aligned with the ankles. So that's where I say, if I hug the heels, then I have to fire up my inner thighs. So you see my feet aren't moving, but the knees do. And I'm not just doing it by rolling out on the foot. You press the feet down, hug the heels and pull it out. Then the inner thighs go back. So as you fold forward, you just come to the blocks here. And then the left hand takes hold on the outside of the right leg. The right hand pushes down on the block, the tall edge of the block, as hard as you can to lift the armpit, the right armpit. Seesaw principle. One thing goes down, one thing lifts. So Carrie, bend your knees a little more. Wide. Now, walk the block out a little farther in front of you, maybe. Oh yeah, big stretch. Now push down on the block as you just shift your torso over towards the right ever so slightly. Pull the left outer hip away, pull it away and back. Don't let it come with the torso. Inhale, come back to center. I find a little deepness there. All right, change sides. Now the left hand's pressing down on the block. Bend your knees as much as you need to. Reach for the outside, some outside part of your left leg. You can be up higher than the calf. And then shift your torso, the ribs move towards the left foot, but the outer right hip moves back to the wall behind you. Don't let it come with. Press down on in your left hand as the inner left armpit lifts. Oh, inhale, come back to center. Hands on your hips, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the armpits, and rise up. Woo. That's like a workout, huh? Right? Be like, what is it, the Wicked Witch of the West when she had the water thrown on her? Melting to the floor. My favorite part. Oh, don't be too, come on down. Yeah. Oh, in the movie. Shelley said my favorite part, and I thought she meant her favorite part of the class to come to the floor, but she quickly said, in the movie. All right.
When I was in drama school, we did the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, you did in drama school?
Yeah.
Carrie, oh, and what part did you play?
Well, I was in the chorus. So we did,
The monkeys?
no, the monkeys.
Oh, the Munchkins.
We were Munchkins.
All on the yellow brick road.
chairs or whatever that was.
Uh-huh.
And we were playing.
All right. So sit on a block. Now you can sit on one block, or if you like a little bit larger landing pad, not landing, you won't be getting up off of it. You sit on one or two, depending on what you want. Yeah, so sometimes, like if your sits bones, like my hips are definitely off, wider than the block, but the sits bones are about as wide as the block. However, we all have different skeletons as well. And just sometimes for some people, the two blocks together feels a little more stable, a little more comfortable. All right, so now you're up on the blocks and find your sits bones, roll to the frontmost and innermost edge of the sits bones. And again, if it feels unstable, pull two blocks this way together. And then walk the toes back to where you're tilting back, but you're not collapsing back. Just to make something, so we do Navasana, boat pose, all the time, but doing it up on a block just shifts our perception ever so slightly. You can start holding behind the thighs. Now, here's what happens on this pose. When the core is weak, we'll overcompensate with the upper body. Now, the core has a little bit of a hard time engaging. So you shrug the shoulders towards the ears to lengthen the side body. Head of the arm bones move back, and the shoulder blades pull onto the back and hug like they're just like little suckers onto the back of the ribs. And then see if you can just balance here and notice the tension that can come into the neck immediately. Don't fall, but just balance. And maybe you can play with balance here a bit. Now notice if you're trying to hold too much with your hands. It's like play with that. Make the core work, keep lifting the chest. You can always reach back and hold back here if the balance is too precarious. Look, Ma, no hands. All right. And then, well, yeah, they do, because the core is harder. All right, so that's good, come down. So Carrie anticipated the joy that's to come. All right, again, if this feels really wonky, put two blocks together this way and sit on them. But this just is a little more precarious, so you just play. Now, what you want to watch for is, while you can contract slightly in the back, turn around, you can contract slightly, you don't want to collapse. So there's a difference in a contraction where you're pulling the belly button up and in. It's like you're kind of knitting everything together, and a collapse. So just be aware of that. So here's what we're doing. Carrie said, when we started to come back into balance, she said her knees automatically want to go out. So we'll play with that. And you may want to just touch behind you, not on the side, that'll round you, but if you touch behind you, if the balance, in fact, start there, just the fingertips light on the floor and lift, but pull the side ribs back. So it's a little contraction, but a lift wing as well. Now, open the knees, point the toes, flex the feet, and pull the knees together like you're squeezing a block. Oh, inhale slowly with resistance. Open, keep lifting, pull the belly button in, flex, little clamshell. Oh, so you see how I have to use more core to pull the knees together? I have to use more inner thigh muscles to open. But then when I pull it together, I really feel the core. See what you feel. You may say, I feel nothing. Yeah, I feel it in my thighs too. Oh, and release. Shake it out. Yeah. Okay, and then come off the block and do a little fold of the blanket just to lift the hips a tiny bit for a seated twist. You may want to have your strap near you. Right, stretch the legs out long without locking the knees, so there's a little bit of softness in the back of the knees. Spread the toes and push through the four corners of the feet evenly. Hug the heels towards each other like you're squeezing a block with the heels. And you feel that goes all the way up the inner thighs. Now, keeping that, the inner thighs move towards the floor and widen the inner thighs without, see, as soon as I widen the inner thighs, my feet started to go out. So you keep the feet. In fact, let's make ourselves keep ourselves honest. Hug the block between the feet. I like to keep a good little bend in the knees because that allows me to sit up more. Now, as I squeeze the block, take the inner thighs to the floor and widen the inner thighs apart without letting go of the squeeze of the block. Feeling that? Wee-haw. Yeah. And then you can use the hands on either side to find some upliftment, to lift the chest, hug the shoulder blades onto the back. Nice. Keep the block between the knees and lift up and walk the hands and the chest forward. You might take the strap. And here, if tilting forward causes you to roll to the back, as soon as I roll to the back of my sits bones, I've lost all the connection in the front, in the core. So hug the blocks, keep the knees as bent as they need to be. It matters not if they're bent. Pull the shoulder blades onto the back using the strap and lift up and out of your hips to roll more and more to the frontmost edge of your sits bones. Not with the shoulders. So if you're hunching the shoulders, hug the elbows deeply into the ribs so the elbows touch your side ribs. Now pull the chest forward. Maybe straightenish the legs. Pull the belly button up and in. Oh, inhale, release.
That's supposed to be in your core.
Well, you can do it without engaging the core. Shelley asked, is that supposed to be in your core? Excellent. Kelly got a little Shakti pop of awe and wonder there, right? Well, now you found it, you'll keep finding it more and more. It'll come in more and more. All right, move the block. Bend the left knee, open it out to the side, and pull. Now the sole of the foot can come way up on the inner thigh like a full tree, or it can come down. This time it can go by the knee, or it can go by the shin. So whatever's going on with this knee, if pinching it here is bringing you unhappiness, then why? So anywhere along the leg that it works, you decide. Wherever you are, push the foot into the leg and the inside of the leg into the foot. That helps you take the inner thighs down to the floor and wide apart. Do you feel that? And into that space, the tailbone lengthens. Now with the strap, lasso the foot, slide your hands down the strap so you can pull back. So while the classic pose here is to reach forward, if you're really tight in the hamstrings, all you'll do is collapse and you'll lose the core. So keep the core engaged here, pull the belly button up and in, and pull the elbows back as the heart comes towards the big toe. Oh, until you feel whatever level of stretch makes you happy and makes you know that good things are happening. And notice a lot of times as we come forward, we want to come forward so badly that we start to move the chin forward, and then that collapses the chest. So keep the chin back and the heart moves. Nice. Now widen, so what you can do if you're sitting on the short edge of the mat, you can open this knee, but widen to where you're out, so you can either take the foot off and put it on a blanket or slide it off on the floor. Yeah, you can take the straight leg off to the side. All right, whatever leg you've got, we've all got different legs, so it's fine. How can 3 people each have a different leg? Now there's an interesting story. All right, take the strap into the opposite hand. So this is a leg that's out, the other hand takes the strap. You may have to come out away to slip your forearm behind your head. So I have 2 straps, double straps. So you may have to come all the way out to the end. It's like, what? I know, right? There you go. So I just pick it up, kind of crunch a little bit, and then you want some twang on this strap. right? So you want enough to where, and you are starting to tilt over, but not a lot. So behind your head there, Shelly. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And push your head into your arm, your forearm or your hand, and stretch up. So what I'm feeling here, I've got it tightened enough that I'm feeling some stretch in the inner thigh. And I'm feeling a nice stretch here. Nothing too intense, but good. All right, release. Change sides. All right, come to whatever side you want on this side of sort of a seated tree. There is another Sanskrit word for it, but it's early in the morning. Why worry? Again, this foot can be anywhere along the inside of the leg, all the way down to the ankle, up to the inner thigh. Push the inner thigh into the foot, and the foot pushes back. The straight leg, the foot is flexed with the baby toe side of the foot coming back. Lasso, slide your hands down, double wrap, pull the elbows back towards the ribs. Step on the gas with a little bit. So it's not like a point, but you're just pressing the belt, the foot into the belt. And pull the heart through, not the chin through, but the heart. So it doesn't matter if you tilt forward as long as you're feeling something and you're saying, well, where should I be feeling this? Pull the belly up and in. If you tilt forward enough, you'll start to feel it in the hamstring. If you feel it right behind the knee or the inner knee, then the knee is locked. You've got to bend the knee and dig the heel in more. Pull your belly up and in. Inner thighs move down to the floor and wide, wide, wide apart. Pull wide. So maybe, Shelly, what's helping you activate the core is focusing on widening the inner thighs. Yeah. That may be where you're finding it. So good. See, exploration. Find stuff. Oh, release. And open the leg out to the side. And then take the opposite hand. Watch out for the buckle. And pull down. So this is pretty tight here. Push the head into the hand. And still, the inner thighs move towards the floor. Even though you're in an outer rotation, you don't want to give up the inner rotation for that. And the inner thighs move wide, wide, wide apart as the tailbone moves into the space. Press your head into your hand, your arm, the lifted arm, and curl back. You hanging yourself there, Carrie?
No, I just get a crack in my.
Oh yeah, well don't do it. Yeah.
True.
And release. All right. Wind your way to the floor. You don't need the strap anymore, but you'll want the block. Let's do pigeon on the floor. Have the blocks in range. Oh, this is my favorite part of the class after a good workout. To just be right. It's the Enjoy the floor. That's why we do this, right? Because it feels so good when it quits. All right, pigeon on your back, otherwise known as baby cradle. Draw your left knee in, cross the shin across the body, and hold behind on the outside of your lower leg, outside of the calf, the shin. Wedge your left elbow into your inner left thigh and push the inner thigh away from the belly. Pull the belly button down and in, and then lift your back waist. So don't collapse your back waist. Snuggle your shoulder blades underneath you. So essentially, the left elbow is pushing the inner left thigh away from the hips. And you'll notice that actually opens the knee. If we just focused on the knee, we'd bypass the fact that it's the tightness of the hips that's not allowing the opening. And then the right hand is pulling the left foot, the left ankle, towards your right shoulder. You can keep the right leg bent or straighten it.
Just go to your maximum stretch that feels uplifting, that it feels that it's beneficial to your body, to your psyche. And then release, bend the right leg again. Place the left sole of the foot on the top of the thigh near the knee. Open the arms in a T position. Press into your right foot, bump your hips to the left, and then roll the leg unit down. The right knee is bent, the left knee is bent, but the left knee is fairly high up. It's not coming to the floor exactly. And the right hand can counterweight to the outside of the left knee, drawing the left knee closer to the floor. And then snuggle both shoulder blades on the back and both shoulder blades evenly weighted. Pull the belly up and in. No. Your left hip is stacked on top of your right. So good question. Shelley asked if the left hip was on the floor. So you're stacking your hips on top of each other, but both shoulder blades are evenly weighted on the floor. And that's where you have to play that little edge. So you give up, the hip doesn't come quite as far over. You bring it over as far until you feel that delicious spiral stretch there. Inhale back to center. Feet on the floor, bump your hips back in line. Just pause a moment. Notice the difference. Draw the right knee in. The right shin crosses the body, the torso, and hold on the outside of the thigh, the calf or the shin, and then press with the right elbow into the inner right thigh. Recover your low back curve. You guys know the drill. And as you push the inner right thigh away from the belly, the left hand pulls the right heel towards your left shoulder. Same stretch that you get when you do the pigeon. Only because we're not on the upright, we're not putting pressure on the knee joint as much, and you can keep the knee joint more open. And if your left leg is straight, bend it, place the left foot on the floor. Then the right foot just rest on top of the left knee. Push into your left foot, bump your hips to the right, arms in a T position, and roll the leg units over to the left until the hips start to come close to stacking on top of each other. Snuggle your shoulder blades on the back, get the right shoulder blade tacked back down, and pull the belly up and in. Use your left hand to pull the right hip over, the right knee over and down. So everything above the belly button is spinning towards the right, and everything below the belly button is spinning towards the left. Oh yeah, you're feeling it now. Good. Inhale and release. Find a block, bend your knees, come into a supported bridge, lift your hips slightly, slide the block underneath it, robot the arms and get your shoulder blades underneath your back and then tack the head of the arm bones back down. You can stay in robot arms if this helps you remember to keep the chest lifted, or you can stretch the arms out by your side, palms up, and keep rolling your shoulders, your arms under, rolling the arms out, the upper arms out, and the lower arms. Lifting the chest, taking a fuller, deeper breath. So you can stay in this inversion for the rest of a short Shavasana. Or if you're at home and you have a couch or a chair, you can just put your legs up the wall or over a couch or a chair for a nice legs up the wall kind of inversion. Or lift your hips, slide the block out from under you, and come into regular vanilla Shavasana. In any case, make yourself comfortable. Scan the body for any places that are holding tension. The bones are heavy, skin, muscles soft, low belly soft, heart center soft and open. The palms and the fingers are just naturally curled and soft. Swallow to soften the throat. Part your back teeth slightly. Part your lips slightly. Cheeks release and soften. All the muscles around the eyes soften. Third eye center, all the way into the center of the skull, softens. Scalp releases. Begin to deepen the breath. Stretching your arms and legs. Yawning, moving the muscles in the face. Throw your knees in, roll to your side, and take that last little delicious on your side, curled up, being fully present in this moment. No past, no future, just this present moment for just now. Rolling a little more towards the floor. Press into your hands to come up and come to a seated position of your choice. Draw your palms together in front of your heart center. Namaste. Thank you, God.